The piercing wail of a baby cut through the pressurized cabin like a knife, making Finn Morgan wince as he settled into his economy seat. It was the last thing he needed after rushing through security with his 5-year-old daughter, Lily, barely making their flight to San Francisco. The crying intensified, and Finn couldn't help but glance across the aisle where a frazzled woman in an elegant blazer was bouncing a red-faced infant on her knee, desperation evident in her eyes. "Daddy, that baby is really loud," Lily whispered, her small hands covering her ears. "I know, sweetheart," Finn replied, adjusting her seatbelt before securing his own. At 32, single fatherhood had become his entire world since his wife's passing 3 years ago. Between working as a high school English teacher and raising Lily, his life was a constant juggling act, especially now during summer break when childcare became a financial puzzle. The baby's cries escalated as the plane began taxiing. Passengers shot irritated glances toward the woman, who was now standing, gently swaying with the infant while murmuring soothing words that clearly weren't working. "Madam, you'll need to take your seat for takeoff," a flight attendant said firmly. The woman nodded, her face flushed with embarrassment as she sat down, the baby still screaming. "I'm so sorry," she said to no one in particular. "He's usually good on flights, but his ears must be hurting." Finn watched as she fumbled in her diaper bag, pulling out a pacifier that the baby promptly spat out. There was something striking about her beneath the stress and obvious exhaustion. Her warm brown eyes held a quiet strength. "Lily, would you be okay sitting here for a minute while I help that lady?" Finn asked his daughter. Lily nodded, already engrossed in her coloring book. "I'm 5 now, Daddy. I'll be fine." With a smile, Finn unbuckled his seatbelt and leaned across the aisle. "Excuse me, would you like some help? I've been there." The woman looked up, surprise flickering across her face. She couldn't have been older than 35, her dark hair falling in loose waves around a face that would have been composed and professional under different circumstances. "Yes, actually, if you wouldn't mind, I've tried everything," she admitted, the relief in her voice palpable. Finn made his way across the narrow aisle. "I'm Finn," he said, extending his hands. "May I? Madison Evans," she replied, carefully transferring the wailing infant. "And this is Noah. He's usually much more charming, I promise." The moment Noah was settled against Finn's chest, the baby's cries began to soften slightly. Finn positioned Noah upright against his shoulder, gently patting his back in a rhythmic pattern. "Sometimes it's just about finding the right position," Finn explained, his voice low and soothing. "The pressure change is tough on their little ears. I used to walk up and down the aisle with Lily for hours when she was this small." Madison watched in amazement as Noah's cries gradually subsided into hiccuping sobs, then eventually into soft, contented gurgles. "That's incredible," she said, her shoulders finally relaxing. "I've been so worried about this flight. It's my first time traveling alone with him." Finn smiled. "How old is he?" 9 months, Madison replied, reaching out to stroke Noah's cheek. "I postponed travel as long as I could, but this meeting in San Francisco couldn't wait any longer." The plane began its ascent, and Finn carefully returned to his seat with Lily, but not before showing Madison how to hold Noah to help with ear pressure during takeoff. Throughout the climb, he glanced over occasionally, offering encouraging smiles when Noah fussed. Once they reached cruising altitude, Madison turned toward him. "Thank you, you're a lifesaver." "No problem at all. I remember how it feels," Finn replied. "This is Lily, by the way." Lily offered a shy wave. "Your baby is cute when he's not screaming." Madison laughed, a genuine sound that transformed her face entirely. "You're right about that, and what a polite young lady you are." As the flight progressed, conversation flowed easily between them. Finn learned that Madison lived in Chicago too, but traveled frequently. She was careful with details about her work, mentioning only that she was in corporate management, and that this trip was important enough to bring Noah along despite the challenges. Finn shared how he was taking Lily to San Francisco to visit his brother for 2 weeks, a much-needed break for both of them. Teaching high school English paid the bills, but didn't leave much for extras, especially with childcare costs eating away at his salary. "Single parenting isn't for the faint of heart," he admitted, helping Lily open her juice box. I'm learning that, Madison replied, a shadow crossing her face. Noah's father isn't in the picture. It's been just us from the beginning. When Noah began fussing again during their descent, Finn instinctively reached across the aisle, offering a finger for the baby to grasp. Try nursing if you can, he suggested quietly, or a bottle. The swallowing helps with the ear pressure. Madison nodded gratefully, adjusting her position to feed Noah discreetly. The baby settled immediately, his tiny hand still wrapped around Finn's finger. You're a natural, she commented. Finn smiled, a hint of sadness in his eyes. Lots of practice. After Claire died, it was just Lily and me figuring things out together. Madison's eyes softened. I'm so sorry. It gets easier, he said simply, giving Noah's hand a gentle squeeze before withdrawing to help Lily gather her things for landing. As passengers began disembarking, Finn helped Madison collect the surprising amount of gear that accompanied a 9-month-old. He slung her diaper bag over his shoulder while balancing his own backpack, and Lily proudly carried Madison's purse. My brother David should be waiting at baggage claim, Finn explained as they made their way through the terminal. He's giving us a ride to his place. Can we help you get to wherever you're going? Madison hesitated. That's very kind, but I have a car service arranged. At baggage claim, Finn spotted his brother immediately. David was the taller, broader version of himself, with the same dark blonde hair and easy smile. After quick introductions, David insisted on helping with Madison's luggage as well. I can't thank you all enough, Madison said, bouncing Noah gently as he began to fuss again. It was nothing, Finn replied, suddenly reluctant to say goodbye. Good luck with your meeting. Madison bit her lip, then pulled out a business card from her purse. If you and Lily want a local guide during your stay, I know San Francisco pretty well. I'm here for 2 weeks too. We'd like that, Finn said, taking the card and tucking it carefully into his wallet. Only after they'd parted ways and were driving toward David's home in Oakland did Finn finally look at Madison's business card. His eyes widened. Everything okay? David asked, glancing at him in the rearview mirror. Finn turned the card over in his hands. Madison Evans, CEO of Altura Technologies. He let out a low whistle. No wonder she was vague about her corporate management position. You made friends with a CEO, David laughed. Nice work, little brother. She was just a mom with a crying baby, Finn replied, remembering the genuine gratitude in her eyes. 3 days later, after settling into the rhythm of vacation, Finn found himself staring at Madison's business card again while Lily built sandcastles with her uncle at Ocean Beach. Just call her already, David urged, noticing his brother's distraction. What's the worst that could happen? The worst, Finn thought, was that he'd misread the situation entirely. A struggling high school teacher and a CEO hardly moved in the same circles. But there had been something in the way she'd looked at him. Before he could talk himself out of it, he dialed the number. Madison Evans, she answered, her voice crisp and professional. Hi, it's Finn Morgan, from the plane. He winced at how uncertain he sounded. There was a pause, then her tone softened. Finn, I was hoping you'd call. They arranged to meet the following day at Golden Gate Park, a neutral, family-friendly location. When Finn arrived with Lily, he spotted Madison immediately, sitting on a bench near the children's playground, Noah strapped to her chest in a carrier. She looked different today, more relaxed in jeans and a simple blouse, her hair pulled back in a ponytail. Still unmistakably elegant, but approachable in a way she hadn't been on the plane. There they are, Finn said to Lily, who skipped ahead eagerly. Hi, Noah's mom, Lily called out. Can we see the baby? Madison smiled, waving them over. Of course, he's been much happier on solid ground. Their afternoon together flowed with surprising ease. They walked through the conservatory of flowers, letting Lily lead the way with her endless questions about plants. Later, they found a quiet spot for a picnic lunch that Madison had thoughtfully arranged. I hope this isn't too forward, she said as she unpacked sandwiches from an insulated bag. I thought it might be easier than trying to wrangle 2 kids in a restaurant. It's perfect, Finn assured her, helping Lily with her juice box. Though I feel like I should be the one treating you after you went to all this trouble, Madison shook her head. Please, after you saved my sanity on that flight, consider this the beginning of repaying that debt. As they ate, Madison finally opened up about her work. She had founded Altura Technologies 8 years ago, developing software that streamlined hospital administrative systems. What had started as a small startup had grown into a company with offices in 4 cities. The San Francisco expansion is why I'm here, she explained, adjusting Noah as he dozed against her chest. It's the first major move since Noah was born. That's incredible, Finn said, genuinely impressed. How do you balance it all? A shadow crossed Madison's face. Not always well. Having Noah changed everything. Before, I could work 18-hour days without thinking twice. Now, she trailed off, looking down at her sleeping son. Let's just say I'm still figuring it out. That never stops, Finn admitted, the figuring it out part. When Lily ran off to play on the nearby playground equipment, Finn found himself sharing more than he had intended about the challenges of raising a child alone, about the financial struggles that kept him awake at night, about the teaching job he loved despite its limitations. I don't regret a single sacrifice, he said, watching Lily climb confidently up a ladder, but sometimes I wonder if I'm giving her everything she needs. Madison's gaze followed his. From where I'm sitting, you're giving her the most important thing, your time and attention. She hesitated. That's something I worry about with Noah, that my work will always be pulling me away from him. You're doing both, Finn pointed out. That counts for a lot. Their conversation was interrupted when Lily ran back, breathless with excitement about a dog she'd seen. As the afternoon progressed, Finn found himself increasingly drawn to Madison not because of her success or status, but because of the thoughtful way she listened, the genuine interest she took in Lily, and the vulnerable moments when she admitted her own parenting insecurities. By the time they parted ways, Finn had agreed to meet her again 2 days later for dinner, this time without the children. David had enthusiastically volunteered to babysit, practically pushing Finn out the door when the evening arrived. Don't wait up, David had called after him with a knowing grin. The restaurant Madison had chosen was upscale but not pretentious, with a warm ambience that immediately put Finn at ease despite his initial nervousness about his simple button-down shirt and the nicest pair of jeans he owned. Madison was already seated when he arrived, her hair loose around her shoulders, wearing a simple black dress that made Finn momentarily forget how to speak. You look beautiful, he said when he finally found his voice. A slight blush colored her cheeks. Thank you. It's nice to wear something without worrying about baby spit up for a change. Over dinner, their conversation deepened. Madison spoke about growing up with ambitious parents who had pushed her relentlessly, how she'd built her company partly to prove herself and partly to create the kind of workplace she wished had existed for her mother, who had abandoned her own career aspirations to raise children. And then Noah came along, she said, her expression softening. Completely unplanned and completely perfect, suddenly all those work-life balance policies I'd implemented for my employees became very personal. Noah's father, Finn began hesitantly, if you don't mind me asking. Madison's fingers tightened briefly around her wine glass. A brief relationship that ended before I even knew I was pregnant. He's not interested in being a father, which is probably for the best. She took a careful sip of wine. Noah and I are doing fine on our own. Finn nodded, understanding the complexity behind her simple statement. Lily asks about her mother sometimes, he admitted. Those are the hardest days. Madison reached across the table, her hand covering his. How do you answer her, honestly? Finn said. I tell her that her mom loved her very much and that she would be so proud of the girl she's becoming. He turned his hand to hold Madison's properly. And on the really difficult days, we look through photo albums together and I tell her stories. They lingered over dessert, neither wanting the evening to end. When they finally left the restaurant, Madison suggested a walk along the Embarcadero, the lights of the Bay Bridge sparkling over the water. I had my doubts about this dinner, Madison confessed as they strolled side by side, their hands occasionally brushing. Oh, Finn tried to keep his tone light, though his heart sank a little. Not because of you, she quickly clarified, because of me. My track record with relationships isn't great. I've always chosen work, and men have always resented that eventually. I admire your dedication, Finn said honestly. Teaching isn't the same as running a company, but I understand having a calling that's bigger than yourself. Madison stopped walking, turning to face him fully. That's just it. You understand things most people don't. On that plane, when you took Noah without hesitation, do you know how rare that is? Most men I meet either see me as the CEO they want to impress or the single mother they want to avoid. I just saw someone who needed help, Finn said simply. Madison stepped closer. And that's exactly why I can't stop thinking about you. When Finn kissed her, it felt both surprising and inevitable. Her lips were soft against his, her hand coming up to rest against his chest. It had been years since he'd kissed someone new, years since he'd felt that flutter of possibility. When they finally pulled apart, Madison's eyes remained closed for a moment, a small smile playing on her lips. I haven't done that in a very long time, Finn admitted. Neither have I, Madison replied, her fingers still resting lightly on his chest. But I'd like to do it again. The remainder of their 2 weeks in San Francisco passed in a blur of shared moments. Madison adjusted her meeting schedule to spend afternoons with Finn and Lily. And Finn found himself increasingly captivated by her, not just her obvious intelligence and beauty, but the way she would get down on the floor to play with Lily, the gentle way she cared for Noah, and her genuine interest in Finn's teaching stories. They took the children to Fisherman's Wharf, rode the cable cars, and spent a memorable day at the California Academy of Sciences. With each outing, Lily grew more attached to both Madison and Noah, proudly assuming the role of helper with the baby. On their last night in San Francisco, after Lily had finally fallen asleep in David's guest room, Finn and Madison sat on the back deck of her rented house in Pacific Heights, Noah asleep in his portable crib nearby. I don't want this to end tomorrow, Finn admitted, his arm around Madison's shoulders as they looked out at the twinkling city lights. Madison leaned into him. I've been thinking about that too, she hesitated. I know long-distance relationships are challenging, but Chicago is my home base. I'm there at least 3 weeks out of every month. Finn felt hope expanding in his chest. So we could make it work, I want to try, Madison said, turning to face him fully. These 2 weeks have been. I don't know how to describe it. It's like I can breathe more easily when you're around. Even with all the chaos of 2 kids. Especially with the chaos, Finn agreed with a smile. It's real life, not some artificial dating scenario. Madison nodded. Exactly. You see me at my most frazzled and professional, and somehow you seem to like both versions. I more than like both versions, Finn said softly, brushing a strand of hair from her face. I'm falling for the whole package, Madison. The CEO, the mom, all of it. The truth of his words surprised even him. In just 2 weeks, Madison had become someone he couldn't imagine not having in his life. It wasn't just attraction or companionship, it was the way she challenged him, respected his devotion to Lily, and showed her own vulnerability despite the powerful position she held in her professional life. I'm falling for you too, Madison whispered, her eyes holding his. For your patience, your kindness, the way you love Lily so completely. She took a deep breath. And that terrifies me, because my life is complicated and demanding, and I don't want to drag you and Lily into something that might hurt you. Life is always complicated, Finn replied, taking her hands in his. But some complications are worth it. We can figure this out together, one step at a time. When they kissed this time, it felt like a promise not just of passion, but of partnership, of facing those complications side by side. The goodbye at the airport the next morning was harder than either had anticipated. Lily clung to Noah, insisting on one last hug with my baby, as she had taken to calling him. Madison held Finn tightly, whispering 2 weeks against his ear the time until she would return to Chicago. Those 2 weeks crawled by for Finn. He and Madison spoke daily, sometimes just quick check-ins, other times long conversations after the children were asleep. They shared the mundane details of their days, building a foundation that went beyond their vacation connection. When Madison and Noah finally arrived in Chicago, Finn and Lily were waiting at the airport, Lily holding a hand-drawn welcome sign decorated with glitter and stickers. "There they are," Lily shouted, bouncing on her toes as Madison appeared with Noah in his stroller. The months that followed established a rhythm to their relationship. Madison arranged her schedule to maximize her time in Chicago, sometimes working remotely to extend her stays. Finn adjusted to dating someone whose idea of a casual dinner might involve a Michelin-starred restaurant, while Madison embraced the simple pleasures of picnics in the park and movie nights on Finn's worn couch. There were challenges, of course. Madison's work occasionally required last-minute travel, leading to canceled plans and disappointed faces. Finn sometimes felt out of place at corporate events where Madison was the center of attention, and both children experienced adjustment periods as their parents' relationship deepened. 6 months into their relationship, the first major test came when Madison was offered a significant partnership opportunity that would require extensive travel for 3 months. "I don't know if I should take it," she admitted to Finn one evening as they cleaned up after dinner, the children already asleep. "It's an incredible opportunity for the company, but the timing." Finn placed the last dish in the dishwasher and turned to her. "You should take it." Madison looked surprised. "Really? It would mean barely seeing each other for weeks at a time. It would be hard," Finn acknowledged. "But this is part of who you are, Madison. I fell in love with the CEO as much as the mother." He pulled her close. "We'll make it work. Video calls, weekend visits when possible. Lily and I might even fly out to see you during her spring break." Madison's eyes widened slightly. "You love me." Finn realized what he'd said and smiled. "I do. I love you, Madison Evans, complicated schedule and all." Tears welled in her eyes. "I love you too, and I've been terrified to say it because everyone I've ever loved has eventually resented my work." "I'm not everyone," Finn said simply, kissing her softly. The 3 months of separation tested them, but also strengthened their commitment. By the time Madison returned permanently to Chicago, they had learned to communicate more effectively, to appreciate their time together more fully, and to include both children in planning their shared future. On a crisp autumn day 1 year after they'd first met, Finn took Madison back to the same park where they'd had their first real date in San Francisco, now recreated in a quiet corner of Chicago's Lincoln Park. Noah, now almost 2, toddled beside Lily, who at 6 was protective and patient with her little brother. The children raced ahead to the playground while Finn spread out the picnic blanket in exactly the same way Madison had done a year earlier. "This feels familiar," Madison said with a smile, settling onto the blanket. "It should," Finn replied, unpacking the gourmet sandwiches he'd splurged on for the occasion. "I wanted to recreate our first date. Well, our first real date, not the airplane meet cute." Madison laughed. "That was hardly cute. I was a disaster." "You were human," Finn corrected. "And I knew right then that you were something special." As they watched the children play, Finn reflected on the year that had transformed all their lives. Madison had restructured her company to allow her more time in Chicago, even opening a new office there to reduce her travel. Finn had accepted her help to enroll Lily in a better school, swallowing his pride when he realized that what mattered was his daughter's future, not his ego. "I have something for you," Finn said when they'd finished eating. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. Madison's breath caught. "Finn." "Before you say anything," he began, opening the box to reveal a simple but elegant diamond ring, "I want you to know that I've thought about this carefully. I know our lives are complicated. I know we're still figuring out how to blend our families. But I also know that I love you more today than I did yesterday, and less than I will tomorrow." Tears filled Madison's eyes as Finn continued. "You're extraordinary, Madison, as a businesswoman, as a mother, as a partner. I don't want to change a single thing about your life or who you are. I just want to be part of it, officially and permanently. You and Noah have made our lives so much fuller, and I can't imagine a future without you in it." He took a deep breath. "Madison Evans, will you marry me?" Madison wiped away tears, her smile radiant. "Yes," she whispered. "Absolutely yes." As he slipped the ring onto her finger, Madison pulled him close. "You know this won't be easy," she warned. I'm still figuring out how to balance everything. We'll figure it out together, Finn assured her. That's what partners do. They called the children over to share the news. Lily immediately began planning her flower girl dress, while Noah clapped his hands, mostly imitating his sister's excitement. We're going to be a real family, Lily declared, hugging Madison tightly. We already are, Madison replied, meeting Finn's eyes over Lily's head. This just makes it official. They married 6 months later in a ceremony that balanced elegance with intimacy. Madison's corporate empire was represented by only her closest colleagues, while Finn's fellow teachers and David's family rounded out their side. What mattered most was the four of them standing together, making promises not just as a couple but as a family. At the reception, Finn pulled his new wife onto the dance floor for their first dance. Happy? He asked softly. Madison looked over to where Noah and Lily were dancing together, Noah standing on Lily's feet as she carefully guided him in circles. More than I ever thought possible, she answered honestly. You know, when Noah started crying on that plane, I was convinced it was going to be the worst flight of my life. Funny how things work out, Finn murmured against her hair. I had 3 interviews scheduled that day, Madison confessed. Potential nannies who could travel with us. I was so determined to prove I could do it all alone. And now I know that doing it together is infinitely better. She rested her head against his chest. Even a CEO needs help sometimes. Even a struggling teacher can offer it, Finn added with a smile. As the music continued around them, Finn reflected on the unlikely path that had brought them together: a crying baby, a crowded airplane, and 2 single parents doing their best under difficult circumstances. What had begun as a simple act of kindness had blossomed into a love that neither had been looking for but both had desperately needed. To think, Madison said, echoing his thoughts, all of this because Noah had an earache at 30,000 feet. I'd say that was the best flight delay of my life, Finn replied, spinning her gently under his arm before drawing her close again. In the years that followed, their family grew and evolved. Madison's company continued to thrive, though she delegated more and prioritized differently. Finn eventually moved into educational administration, developing programs for underprivileged students that Madison's foundation helped fund. They added a daughter to their family 2 years after their wedding, completing the circle that had begun with a crying baby and a kind stranger on an airplane. And every year, on the anniversary of that fateful flight, they took their children on a special outing, a reminder that sometimes life's most challenging moments can lead to its greatest joys, if only you're brave enough to reach across the aisle and offer help to a stranger.